Greetings and welcome to Faith Building Bible Study dedicated to glorifying God, edifying believers, and giving God's vision of light to unbelievers in darkness. Today we'll be talking through the scriptures, listening to God's commands, principles, patterns, and promises to live by. And we do that to defeat the spirit of doubt, discouragement, diversion, delay, and defeat brought to us from the world system, our sinful nature, and Satan. We are spiritual beings living in a physical world that have spiritual needs. The Word of God is the only place to deal correctly with our spiritual and physical needs. Today we are starting a new lesson. Jesus washes his disciples' feet. It can be found in John 13, verse 1 to 17. We will be covering up to verse 5 this afternoon. John 13, verse 1 and 2, New Living Translation. Before the Passover celebration, Jesus knew that his hour had come to leave this world and return to his Father. He had loved his disciples doing his ministry on earth, and now he loved them to the very end. Verse 2. It was time for supper, and the devil had already prompted Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Now, what is this verse relaying to us? First off, because Jesus was fully aware of his hour and his hour had come to leave this world and return to his Father, he devoted his last hours to instructing and encouraging his disciples. Jesus continued his devotion to his disciples until the very end of his life, showing them in this last night the full extent of his love. Before he left them, he wanted to express his love to them one by one, and this he would do in a way that would surprise them. This was a special Passover, for it was the last meal Jesus would eat with his disciples. Jesus had already called Judas a devil in John 6:70, because Jesus knew that Judas would cooperate with the devil and carry out Jesus' death. Thus, the devil and Judas collaborated in Jesus' betrayal. Indeed, Satan entered Judas to carry out the actual betrayal. John chapter 13, verse 4 and 5, New Living Translation. Jesus knew that the Father had given him authority over everything and that he had come from God and would return to God. Verse 4. So he got up from the table, took off his robe, wrapped a towel around his waist. Verse 5. And poured water into a basin. Then he began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel he had around him. Now, a couple of things about Jesus. Jesus, the Son of God, Jesus knew his origin and his destiny. Jesus knew that he would soon be returning to the Father. Jesus focused his attention on the disciples. Jesus showed them what it meant for him to become their servant and for them to serve one another. At the time, at the time so near to the revelation of Jesus' true identity and glory, he set aside what was rightly his and expressed his character through an act of humility. Jesus got up, took off his robe, and wrapped a towel around his waist like an apron. Jesus poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet. Jesus was the model servant, and he showed his servant attitude to his disciples. Feet washing was a common act in Bible times. People traveled mostly on foot in sandals across the dusty roads of Judea. When entering a home, it was customary to wash one's feet. To not offer to wash a guest's feet was considered a breach of hospitality. Washing guests' feet was a job for a household servant to carry out when guests arrived. What was unusual about this act was that Jesus, the master and teacher, was doing it for his disciples, as the lowliest slave would do. Today we covered John chapter 13, verse 1 to 5, part 1 of Jesus washes his disciple feet. You'll find this teaching on youtube.com, channel Minister Pankey. Thanks for joining and God bless.